Oh, from New York, you are listening to Extra Time. I am Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Matt Doyle, Kaylin Kyle, back with us again, back with us forever, Kaylin, and you already have a noise-related distraction in the background. You're part of the team.
Part of the team.
Yeah,
part of the team.
Just a little bit of a background. Everyone told me not to get a white couch with 2 kids and a dog. Did I listen? No. So I have to get it cleaned once a month. So yeah, anyways, don't ever get a white couch with kids. That's my note of the day.
What do we got, Dave? We've been doing this a long time. We have the clanking radiator. Yeah, we got the radiator. We've got obviously a lot of, landscaping noise from the likes of Charlie Davies, who, by the way, just announced an amazing opportunity with CBS.
Congrats,
yes.
Chuck.
Yeah.
And Suze.
Well done. And Suze. Yeah. Big time. Partners in soccer, forever they are. Obviously, Tom. Have cats. Yeah. Dogs have barked. We have sirens certainly in the background frequently.
Yeah.
City noise. If you have any other to add to the list, feel free to hit us up. We've had children.
Weeby's forgetting his own children.
Yes.
Running around upstairs.
Those COVID days are hard to remember, to be honest with you. The ones when they broke in, those were the ones I remember. But yes, playing above me and sounding like a herd of elephants. So yeah, that's the show for you in a nutshell. We talk about MLS and there's background noise, and hey, you're here with us regardless. So Matchday 3 in the books. It was a good one. Wasn't as goal heavy as maybe we would have liked it to be, but Doyle, you reminded me as we were watching from the MLS Season Pass studios that March and sometimes April, but February and March are often a little bit bumpy. So we'll go through it right now. And our best thing you saw on Matchday 3, we got to start with you, Kaylin, because you're hitting the Shield leaders, the Supporters Shield leading who?
St. Louis, baby. I mean, this team for me, it's like a joy to watch. I love when everyone was like, it's luck. It's luck. They're buying themselves luck. I'm sorry, you can't break this down to luck anymore. They've gone to Austin. They've gone to Portland, probably to Austin, one of the most difficult places. I would say Portland, one of the most difficult places to go and collect the points. And they've done it in fashion. All 3 games going down an early goal and then clawing their way back in. The fight in this team, I'm loving it. I need a jersey from them. So again, I'm going to ask every single week because I'm having to wear my Selena t-shirt right now because I don't have any more Major League Soccer 2023 jerseys. So yeah, St. Louis, I'm in your court. I am fully supporting you.
My jersey begging, I'm rocking the RSL Gold Victory kit today, has worked better for me behind closed doors, Kaylin. When I put it out publicly, I got absolutely dragged for it. So I'll give you the names and numbers to slip in there to get some jerseys. Second City St. Lucian Esquire, which is a very interesting name on Twitter. M. McDaniel said, when are we going to stop the St. Louis is lucky narrative? Teams have tape now on these guys, and apparently we're stopping it right now, unless they get lucky next week, and then we'll crank it back up.
We're not going to mention. Go ahead, Kaylin. No, go ahead.
Can I just add one more thing to them?
Sure.
Is they're winning everything. They've gone undefeated this season, even in e-streaming with eMLS. They ended up winning that championship, so they don't know how to lose right now, which I'm loving.
Yeah, congrats on the first trophy. We'll expect to see the star above the crest next week. City. There was a little luck though, right? I mean, they scored the winner off a set piece that Portland's defense let bounce in the 6-yard box, which is like
a goal, baby.
I agree, right? Like, and you make your own luck. And this team, they have a very clear identity, and they are so completely bought in on what Bradley Carnell wants from them, and they're executing every week, and they deserve all the credit in the world for that, and they're clearly going to be a tough out. But when you're playing teams that are letting a set piece bounce in their own 6-yard box in a tie game, that's a little bit of good fortune, man. Like, that's a little bit of luck on St. Louis's side.
Rebuttal, that's in character for the Portland Timbers, as we've already seen on set piece defending. Okay, Dave, give me your best thing you saw on Matchday 3.
So I'm going to curveball and go my not top best thing, but I did want to have something positive. So I do want to give credit to Chris Durkin, who has played out of position all season. He's created every chance and then decided that he was going to cut someone from right to left and bang a goal into the back corner, because that's who Chris Durkin is now in Major League Soccer. So credit to him. But my not top thing is Minnesota hosting Red Bulls in a blizzard, covered in snow, 2 goals. And I don't get a snow angel celebration. I don't get a snowball celebration. I don't get a snowman celebration. That is low quality.
We did get a snow loon. I don't know if you saw that clip ahead of the game. Obviously, it's coming down. You've got the big fluffy flakes, and a woman has decided that she is going to create a loon on the edge of the railing, and she built it out. It was beautiful. It was incredible. But Gerhard Struber,
take some notice from your own fans. Step up to the level.
Some inspiration. Look in the stands. Yeah. Gerhard Struber wasn't looking in the stands. He was looking at the field, and he was like, "Wait a second, guys, this ain't right."
Can we add to that too that the New York Red Bulls coaching staff was out there with the top of their cooler lids scraping off the pitch as well in Minnesota?
I did not actually notice that.
Not a great look. That field needed to get cleared up.
Andy Greeter wrote, quote, it looked like when you kicked the ball in warm-ups, it gathered snow as if a snowman was being built. Gerhard Struber noticed that there was a lot of snow on the field. Anybody would notice that. He had the orange ball out in effect. Here is Gerhard Struber's quote. I'm just going to read it here. No judgment on anyone. This is just what Gerhard thought. Quote, I have absolutely no understanding. It's under 18, a youth team moment when I was so surprised when I got outside and you cannot see green. Whatever the reason for that. This is very, very unprofessional. I have a completely different expectation how this should play in this league on this level. Adrian Heath also said he was disappointed there was so much snow on the field. Rob hit us up and said, what's up with Minnesota and not being able to clear the snow off the field for the match? Seems like they should be really good at that. They did have a snowblower out. One of the guys snowblowing was in shorts, so that was very Minnesotan of him. But it was clear 90 minutes before. I was getting photos from people. It was clear. It's a heated field. And apparently it was just snowing so hard that they couldn't keep up. I'm
not having it. I'm not having it. That, for me, if you can't clear a pitch, you shouldn't be playing on it. I'm so happy that none of the players did get injured, but unfortunately you're playing in Major League Soccer professional environment. That field, where the rondos were taking place, it was cleared. Where the guys were scraping it off with the top of the coolers, that was cleared. You could see down on the right-hand side, I think, towards the second half, where you were actually starting to see football be played properly. For me, if a pitch can't be cleared properly, you shouldn't be playing on it.
They played a game in Edmonton in December, and they were able to keep the field clear. Yes. You can clear a Minnesota field.
Yeah, that's right. They had 8-foot snow drifts on that one. New School hit us up and said, who wins when teams play games in unplayable conditions? Nobody other than the camera operators. Literally nobody. It's beautiful. It's incredible to watch the slow-mo scenes of the flakes falling, but nobody wins on that side. We'll get to more later on the Red Bulls.
The point from that game. Are we going to hit it later, maybe, or do you want to hit it now?
If it's a quick point, slip it in.
48% pass completion percentage from Minnesota in this game. That's the first time in recorded MLS history a team completed fewer than 50% of their passes, and that part of that is Red Bull. If I looked at the top 10 and 8 of the top 10 were games in which Red Bulls were involved since 2016. But this one, you take that and the field conditions, and then the lack of Babello Reynoso, which is an ongoing thing that they're going to have to solve at some point. It did not make for the most watchable soccer event. And it was disappointing because I want to see how this team is going to evolve. I want to see what they're going to become without Reynoso, because it seems like that's going to be the long-term story for Minnesota. But this, because of the snow and because of the opposition, this just ended up being bumper cars for 90 straight minutes.
Really disappointed. I predicted at the very end of the preview on Season Pass that this was going to be scoreless. I was like, put it on paper. And then those set pieces had to pop up because they were not going to do it from open play. There was no chance of that. Okay, best thing I saw from match day 3, you've got first MLS goals on every side of the spectrum. So we talked about that sort of fortunate, not lucky, fortunate goal for St. Louis City. Kyle Hebert scores that goal. Yeah, it's a header at the back post. It's bouncing in the box, but it goes in and it gives them the win. That's Kyle Hebert's first MLS goal. He spent 6 years at Missouri State, just down the road from St. Louis. I think he grew up in Manitoba. I think he's Saskatchewan. Do you know?
Let's hope not. Let's hope not. No one. I love all my Saskatchewan people, but there can only be a few.
I believe he's from Winnipeg. I don't know.
He's from Winnipeg. Yeah.
What's the difference?
It's basically a different state, right? So Saskatchewan's its province.
Really far away. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay. I don't know how I got
nailed that.
Yeah, really. This is why I'm not the honorary Canadian and why we have an actual Canadian on the show now to really correct us when it comes to geography up north. So it's Winnipeg, but he spends seriously, 5 or 6 years at Missouri State. He's on the MLS Next Pro team. He scores the winner. He's absolutely jacked afterwards. His mom who has been in the mentions and emailing MLS for a while, trying to get coverage of her son in Next Pro, had to be absolutely elated as well. But it was an incredible moment for him. Obviously, you've got the center back from Sweden that's out initially, and here we go. So that's a first goal for him. This is a list. Just putting it out there, Dave. I know I know you're going to make the comment. Owen Wolff, his first professional goal. There was a lot of talk about why is he starting? Why is Alex Ring, the captain for Austin, not playing to start the season? Well, Owen Wolff was a baller. We've documented that here, and he gets his first goal on an absolute thunder strike.
I have to put my hand up for calling him out, saying, does he deserve to be in the starting 11? So apologies, Wolf.
I thought you had a question. I was like, what?
No, that was me putting my hand up saying that was me in the media.
Yeah. Do we all know the trivia of the father-sons? Does everyone know this, so it's not worth doing, or should we do it?
Well,
no, do it.
Yeah, we might know.
Okay, I believe there are 8 father-son duos that have scored in MLS history. Josh Wolff and Owen Wolff are one of them. Does anyone know the other ones?
Yeah, we got the Ferreiras.
The Harkses.
Okay. Yeah, the Harts.
The Harkses.
Harts, sorry. You got the Bunburys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good.
You've got
Anders is putting the answers in the chat.
Yeah.
The one that nobody
I don't have time for a bad trivia segment.
the one that nobody would have gotten is the Valencias, El Tren and Trencito, and then Damien and Onandi Lowe.
That's the one I never would have gotten had I not been sort of handed that one. The Lassiters. Thank you, Anders. I don't want to act like I got that out of nowhere. That was
I should have probably known both of those last two. That's terrible of me, to be honest.
Well, there you go. Adding to history, Owen Wolff.
That's the group.
Thought it was great afterwards. He was, he was an 18-year-old. He was like, that was pretty sick.
Gio left.
Yeah,
Gio left.
And then the best first MLS goal, it was Taylor Washington. And I say the name Taylor Washington, and if you're not a Nashville SC supporter, you probably don't know who Taylor Washington is. He is their longest tenured player going all the way back to the USL days. He's their all-time appearance leader in club history with 120. He is, as Gary Smith said, quote, not known for creation or even efforts at goal. So to see the scissor kick, I mean, seriously, flying scissor kick that he put in the top corner was a bit of a shock. Washington himself said it was utter bliss, thank God, man, about this goal, the second 2-0 win against FC Montreal. It's an incredible thing. And if you go look at what Nashville's fans say about this guy, it is as if they're talking about, a superhero. The effusiveness with which they praise Taylor Washington is pretty incredible. So to see a guy like him get his first goal in a way like that, it wasn't a Duncan McGuire ugly, terrible goal, Doyle, which we'll get to. It was a thing of absolute beauty. So I was jacked up to see that. All right, Doyle, best thing you saw on Matchday 3. That is the end of my list for this episode.
Anders, roll the clip.
See Buke. I think he did a very good job coming on. There's the Rochambeau. Scissor, paper, shoot.
No, they did. They didn't.
Yeah.
What did they do? Those listening are like, hold on. It's hard for me with a clip.
That is class.
It was so good. So what happened was midway through the second half, I want to say, of LAFC's win over New England late Sunday night. LAFC had a free kick in a good spot, and Kellen Acosta and Dennis Bouanga did the old rock, paper, scissors to see who would get to take it. And Bouanga took it, and he pinged it off the crossbar. Like, if he had been able to bury that, it would have been an all-time highlight. Like, just one of the absolute best.
Kaylin, have you ever fought over a free kick? And if so, how did you resolve the disagreement?
No, because I always played with Christine Sinclair, so I was never getting on a free kick ever. So she was like, just go be on the outside of the wall and don't get in my way. I'm like, got it.
Yeah, she's like, cool, scissors.
Just duck when I scream.
Yeah, she's like,
exactly.
We can rock, paper, scissors to see who has to buy the bottle of wine if we win. That was basically it, though.
All right.
Is
everything
Rochambeau a term?
Yeah.
That's a term for rock, paper, scissors, shoot?
Yes.
What is it?
Never heard that before in my life.
Rochambeau.
I've never heard of that either.
Like the French naval admiral who helped win the Independence War. Hamilton, baby.
Oh, I was going to say, look at you. That felt like a slow play for you to drop that knowledge.
No, not at all. Literally, it popped into my head after. But they said it on that was what Max and Dunny called it. I've never heard that before.
All right. You guys want to jump into it? Let's
The name Rochambeau is used mainly in the Western United States, and it's a reference to Count Rochambeau, who, according to widespread legend, played the game during the American Revolutionary War. The legend is apocryphal.
Amazing. Let's move on.
That's a good nugget. You've learned something today.
I have. That's actually interesting. I had no idea.
All right. LAFC, New England Revolution, 4-0. Revs, two teams that I think we can say at this point in Charlotte and Houston that are on the spectrum of not so good. LAFC on the spectrum, Doyle, of quite good. Mm-hmm. LAFC, even without Carlos Vela, Jose Cifuentes, Ryan Hollingshead in the starting lineup, all being rested, you would presume, for CONCACAF Champions League midweek at home against Alajuelense. All rested, they come up for half hour, and LAFC just slap them up. What'd you take away?
So for an hour, I thought the Revs deserved a lot of credit because they went toe-to-toe without their best player, and the Revs, without Carlos Gil, were never going to be good enough to beat LAFC, and they weren't able to create anything because of that. Then around 60, 65 minutes, Bruce makes a couple subs, including bringing Carlos Gil in, and he opens up the game trying to go for that equalizer because it was 1-0 off a fairly obvious penalty, I thought, in the first half. And like as soon as the game opened up, LAFC killed him. Just absolutely killed him. You could see like as soon as this team has space to operate in, that they are just going to be impossible to handle with that front line, which is so mobile, and that central midfield, which is so good at winning the ball back. Like they have that identity in terms of how they play. And then the other part of it is like defensively, like the last 20 minutes of that opening match day win against Portland, where they kind of fell apart, like that feels like an outlier now because we've seen this team for 270 minutes. They're rock solid defensively. They don't get pulled out. Their center backs are not adventurous at all. So if they need to clear, they totally fine with that. They will clear. If they have room to play, they will play. So they don't give the ball away cheaply. They're not going to gift you goals. And then the final part of it is like they're murderous on set pieces. Like we think of LAFC as a pretty team because they have been a pretty team for basically their entire existence, and they can still do that. But this was the type of performance where it was like, no, we're just harder than you, and we're gonna absolutely kill you as soon as you try to do something expansive with the ball. And you do that on the back of a 3-0 CCL win, and you're still sitting on an open DP slot. It's like, okay, I was not high enough on LAFC entering this season. Like that's my takeaway from what we've seen over the past 10 days.
Mark Baird hit us up. Will Doyle apologize for his Bouanga?
The Bouanga take was right. The Bouanga take was right. Like I pointed out that he was miserable in front of goal last year in the regular season. He had 1 goal in, I think, 10 games last year in the regular season. He was missing chance after chance. But what we should all understand is that players who do that, who find good chances, eventually start finishing those chances. Kevin Cabral is the outlier in that regard. That was the entire point of that Twitter thread, was that Bouanga, like LAFC fans were killing Bouanga. And the whole point is when you have a guy who repeatedly gets into spots where he's 1v1 with the goalkeeper or is flashing, getting inside shoulder on the center back for those one-time finishes, like trust that guy to to eventually figure out how to put the ball in the back of the net. So yeah, you're welcome for the take. It was correct.
In other erroneous takes on Twitter.
Well, I was going to say it also helps when there's a ton of drive and push out of midfield from a guy like Timothy Tillman. Like one of those guys who's always going forward, taking guys on, drawing penalties, creating goals. So it just opens up so much space for Bouanga. Do you agree, Doyle?
I do, yeah. Tillman was great.
Look, Luis hit us up and said, how come no one took Bouanga in the Golden Boot draft? Are you guys regretting your discussion now? What Luis doesn't remember is that Tom has Bouanga.
Yeah.
He drafted him, and that we all wanted him, but we were hoping he would drop down. Vincent Valentine. Look, LAFC fans were on one after this. How long is it going to take for extra time to take Bouanga and Dolo seriously after they won the double last year?
I picked them to finish
crazy.
first in the preseason.
That kid's in everybody's mentions on Twitter. Just like he's like perceived slights to bring back a Weeby Classic. He's a perceived slight.
That might actually be
fan.
my account. You don't know. That's my personal straw man right there. Let's see. Darmalia said, do you feel LAFC lack depth after watching Stipe Buke and Tillman last night? And Ash said, to put a cherry on top of all of this, are LAFC going to just sweep up the competition again this year with a rotated team? They still beat the Revs 4-0 and never really looked out of first gear. What do you think, Kaylin? What'd you see?
Yeah, I think for me, you just answered the own question by reading the depth. I mean, you look at the rotation that they've had in this LAFC side and a 4-0 performance, defensively so sound. I mean, better defensively this game than they were against their first game of the season. And that's with Carlos Vela on the bench, the best player in Major League Soccer. Let's just be probably completely honest. Maybe not for you guys, but for me, you have Cellini that was on the bench as well. I think this proves the depth that they have in this side. And just, you saw the momentum shift once you alluded to it, Doyle, when the game did start to open up and the spaces started to open up. But that's LAFC's bread and butter. They love, drawing those games out and then playing in those pockets of spaces. And once the games do start to open up, that's when they do come alive, especially with players like Carlos Vela. So if this has taught me anything, they can be in as many competitions as they want. They have the best depth in Major League Soccer for me.
Speaking of that, Dave, we have not, because of timing, talked CONCACAF Champions League and LAFC and Alajuelense and the traveling supporters and Denny Bawanga in that game. Catch us back up.
They go down to an Alajuelense team that are first in Costa Rica, which is traditionally the third strongest league in North America. An Alajuelense team that's beaten MLS teams in the past. They were heavily veteran squad. Borges is in that side. Alex Lopez, Honduran international starter. And that atmosphere, it's one of the best in Costa Rica. I saw someone put out on Twitter, I have not researched this myself, so I apologize if it's wrong, that Alajuelense, since they built that stadium, have only ever lost 10 games across all competitions at home. So you go there and you win 3-0, dominating fashion. You talked about the atmosphere from the fans. Like, we came out of last year in MLS Cup, and I think a lot of us stood on that field post game, and when we talked, it felt like LAFC had built something that was sort of new to Major League Soccer, and we were trying to put it into words. Taking over a stadium in Central America, winning 3-0 against one of the best clubs in the region. When you look at what the other MLS teams did, and Orlando's result was phenomenal, that's different, but like, Austin went to a neutral site and lost 3-0 to a Haitian club that isn't fully professional. And like, so when you put that in contrast with what LAFC accomplished, it was a historic moment. Last week, it was an incredible performance. And then you add on to it what Kaylin just said, which is the depth to rotate 4 or 5, not just starters, but your major pieces, the guys you need to protect to be able to compete, and then put up that performance against an undefeated Revs team at home a few days later. It was an impressive week overall. And that is sort of what we talk about with LAFC of Dennis Bawanga is an in his prime player coming from Ligue 1. He can play a ton of minutes. He can carry you. It allows you to juggle Vela. Buke looks already, I'm not going to say he's a Golden Boot contender, but he looks already like he's going to be a solid player at least this year. That's a young international that was on the radar of a lot of big clubs in Europe who came from Europe to LA to play for this team. So a lot of what LAFC is doing is impressive. And this was one of the better weeks they've had in a while, considering they won a double last year, is pretty impressive.
We've reached our Twitter imposed LAFC quota for the show. So I just have to cut it off right there and send it to you, Doyle, on the Revs. Josh Cacho, what happened to the Revs' stellar defense? New England TID. Should we be panicking in New England? Revs Twitter seems to think so.
You're playing on
Tony
the road.
Soprano just joined the
No. Yeah.
You're playing on the road against what might be the best team in North America. You don't have your best player. You're getting a really poor performance out of Dylan Barrero, who we all hyped up last week. He was terrible in this game. Bobby Wood also struggled. He was pocketed. Latif Blessing, I thought, struggled receiving the ball. I thought he was good defensively. This is it's basically a scheduled loss. You go for 60 minutes and they kept it close. They didn't really give anything other than the penalty kick, which was just an individual error from Gustavo Bo. And then when they opened it up, that's when they got killed. So I think it's like, okay, this is the level we have to get to. It's not, oh God, throw everything out after what we did for the first 2 weeks in the first hour of this game. It's like, okay, like obviously there are other levels that we have to hit. There are ways we have to be smarter if we're going to open up the games. And maybe there are teams that we can't really open up like that against. But I don't think you come out of this one thinking, oh God, we're absolutely helpless, because that final 25 minutes where LAFC were incredible, like that was a product of game state and a little bit of desperation from the Revs. That wasn't a product of something structural.
But they didn't create a single chance. And I do think it puts them in context of a home win against Houston and away game against LAFC. Those are pretty much the two extremes in MLS. So I think we're going to find out where they actually sit, which is part of sort of what we needed, because if they had gone to LAFC, if they had gone to LAFC and gotten a result, it would have been a whole other conversation. I don't love this group, so I don't come in super high on them. I don't see them as offensively potent enough to cover for. I don't think Dave Romney and Henry Kessler is an elite backline that can keep you in games to then say, we don't really create that many chances. It's fine. They'll come when they come. Petrovic might be good enough. And Latif alongside Bolster might help things, but I haven't been sold on anything with the Revs that I didn't already think coming into the year.
You can't sell me on anything with the Revs without Carles Heel. Like if you're going to go play a game without Heel, I'm not buying. That's just the deal for them. But if you have Gustavo Bo coming off a lot of weeks in Argentina playing charity matches, you need him to defend on the 18. That's like a golden rule of MLS. Got to get him in the 18, make sure he's 1v1 situations. All right, Timbers 1, City. Should we they want City. They don't even want St. Louis.
They changed it in my column. I refuse to write it all uppercase in my column, and the poor editors have to go in there and change City to all caps, yelling at you, City, in every reference.
By the way,
classic Doyle making his stand so that someone lower on the food chain has to do more work.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, this is my morals. Style. Forget MLSsoccer.com style. This is the armchair analyst style. By the way, Anders puts City in all caps in like 25-point font, while everything around it is in 12-point font. So it really helps me imagine, Kalen, what it's like to be a City fan right now. They've matched 2009 Seattle as the only expansion team to win their first 3 matches. That is an incredible accomplishment for this team. What stands out to me is that it isn't just one dude. It isn't just Klaus. It isn't just Leuven. It isn't just Berkey standing on his head, Georgie Petrovic style. It is an entire team that has bought into what they're doing. And yes, they are getting some breaks. Matt Baker hit us up and said, nothing but smiles over here. I control F back passes after this game and found nothing. So is the rest of the world ready to admit that we're for real just yet? But it's the whole team. And that's what they said. They said, we don't have designated players. We might have them in label, but that's not what we want. And here we are. 3 wins, 3 games.
I like it. I like that you said it's not about these big name players, but it is for me, because you look at, for me in Major League Soccer in any team, the spine of your team, but especially in Major League Soccer is the most important. So you have a great center back, Major League Soccer experience, Tim Parker, that leadership, that for me is one of the biggest things lacking in Major League Soccer is a good, solid defense. So I think if you are building a team, I think it's so important to have a very good center back that has that league experience. And I think that's what they do have in Tim Parker. Then you named it for me. I mean, the midfielder, Edward Leuven, I think he is phenomenal. I think for me, he's one of the most exciting midfielders in the league. Not the amount of ground that he covers, but his ability to create in a very tight space. His vision, his passing range, I think it is phenomenal. So you can say it's luck when it comes to St. Louis. Oh, it was a bad set piece opportunity. Well, then we can say that about any team in Major League Soccer that gives away bad set pieces. For me, this team, from what I've seen in 3 games, grind you down mentally, grind you down physically, grind you down emotionally, and then they're so clinical in that attack with that big target striker. I mean, he doesn't look Brazilian, and I'm not, trying to be rude by any means, but he looks like he gets the ball and you're like, he's not going to be able to do anything. 6'1", correct me if I'm wrong. And then he comes out and he's got these smooth, silky feet. He connects passes. He's 1-2ing. He's like getting behind a back 4. I'm like, you don't look like you should be able to run past people at this moment. And then he's so clinical in and around the 18-yard box. For this St. Louis side, I think, you talk about expansion teams. I think this is what excites me about it, is there's really no, it's an expansion team. If they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. If they finish bottom of the East, they do. For this team, you can tell, you can see the fight in their eyes. Even the coach at the end of the match grabbing the players saying like, let's beep and go. I won't say the word because I got beeped out in my first episode already, but the passion and the willingness to fight for their team. And you saw that in Portland. You have Klaus that is in the 87th minute running back and covering the top of his own 18-yard box. This team is willing to fight for one another. They know they don't have those big superstars that maybe have those in-game changing moments. If your team is playing like crap, that they can step up like a, like
a Carlos Vela.
Thank you. Carlos Vela. I was going to say Emmanuel Reynoso, but it's not even here. But a game-changing player that can change a moment in a game. So I love this team. I think what they're building here is incredible. I think it's very different than what maybe we had seen in an expansion team in a really long time in Major League Soccer. And I think the ownership group, I think the coaching staff have completely got it right. And I'm not saying their games have been luck. Back passes, okay, but you make your own luck. And I think they're making their own luck in Major League Soccer. And I think when teams look at this team, they're thinking, oh, I don't really want to play this team because they're going to outwork us. They're going to out hustle us. And they're going to put bodies on us and not scared to get stuck into tackles, which I love. I'm all about. I feel like I'm Taylor Twellman right now. I'm sorry, guys. But like I love this team.
I feel it coming through. And look, it's got to be intoxicating. Not just for the players and the coaches, the support, for everybody in St. Louis. I mean, I had my neighbor back in Kansas City, who's a St. Louis guy, but not a soccer guy, texting me about this. Like, it has to be just absolutely elating to be in this position, to not know what it's going to look like, and to have just one home game so far, and for it to be a complete party, and then have the results follow. But we've all been sitting on pins and needles. We were all wondering, how tall do you think João Klaus is, David Goss?
I didn't look it up, but I'm guessing 6'3".
Give it to us, Anders. What do we got? 6'3".
6'3"?
6'3".
Oh my God. I said 6'1".
Yeah, I know. Dave's always guessing higher, though. That's just the way he goes.
6'3" and 185 pounds to be able to cover the ground that man covers. I mean, give me your trainer, give me whatever you need to do, because I can barely run 10 minutes. That's very difficult.
He had one moment where he spun between two defenders and then flicked it off with the side of his foot while the third defender closed on him. He's been awesome. He's been impressive. But you mentioned creating their own luck. They haven't beat themselves. Like in the 3 games they've played, all the goals they've conceded have been good moments from their opponents. They have not gifted anything away. And that's what you need if you're going to be a team that maybe doesn't have the most explosive players on the field. And it's clear after 3 weeks, every MLS team will gift you one moment in the game. So if you don't give that opportunity away and you take advantage of theirs, that's the recipe to success. And for them to do it without Nielsen at center back, right, to be able to cover that spot and not make any mistakes along the back and be able to manage the center forwards they're dealing with and all the other things, like they don't give up cheap opportunities. Portland let the ball bounce in the box.
Doyle's not having it. Doyle's like, I'm not having this at all. Look at him right now.
That's just my face, Kaylin. I promise.
let me just tee you up on this, Doyle, because the thing that strikes me is it is the team effort, but it's also guys that you didn't maybe expect it from, them getting more from that guy. Whether it's Jared Stroud, who scored, whether it is João Klaus, whose career was a little bit, all over the place before he got here. Leuven's probably one that we underrated, who had a lot on his resume coming in, and I'll grant you that. But Kyle Hebert comes in and starts, scores a goal. We thought maybe Tim Parker, maybe he was done in Houston. It doesn't look like he's done just yet. Miguel Perez is a 17-year-old.
I didn't realize it was a list. Sorry, I thought you were asking me a question. I didn't realize it was a list.
Now the question comes.
No, please continue.
It comes from James. The Extra Time crew have spoken before about having a clear identity as like a shortcut to MLS success. It seems like St. Louis have the clearest identity in the league. Can they ride that identity to a trophy this year? Now they're getting high on their horse.
They already got MLS Cup.
That's
guys.
true.
Yeah, you did.
Good point.
No, I don't think they can ride this identity to a trophy.
How about playoffs, though?
I mean, 18 of the 19 teams who have taken 3 points or 9 points from the first 3 games have made the playoffs. And we know with the expanded playoff field, 60% of teams in MLS make the playoffs. I think at this point, they are favorites to make the playoffs. The fact that Hebert is pretty good, which we didn't know coming into this season, suggests that they have the central defensive depth that you need to get through the grind of the regular season. The fact that they're getting minutes from Miggy Perez, who at age 17 is like, he wants that smoke as a teammate. Like he is getting stuck in on everything.
Yeah.
They have some depth now in the spine. The question is going to be like, okay, can they continue to convert their chances at the rate that they have? And I mean, they're not going to score 2.5 goals a game, but can they continue to convert chances at a decent rate as the season goes on? I really like what I've seen of Klaus. I've always liked Jared Stroud. I have a couple of friends around the league who work in front offices, and they're so pissed off right now because they were trying to trade for this kid for 2 years and they just couldn't get their hands on him. So well done to Bradley Carnell and St. Louis for realizing that, like, yeah, there's a starting caliber winger in there. It's like it's all coming up city right now. And like they deserve a ton of credit for that. And the thing to remember is that this is very similar to what happened with Red Bull 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago when Bradley Carnell took over for Chris Armas down the stretch. Like suddenly the young players started playing better and the veterans started having more life, and they were still like, it's still the Red Bull, energy drink soccer style, but they were doing a little bit more with the ball when they got on it. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And then they deserve a lot of credit overall for that roster build, which has kept their powder dry for moves that they might need to make in the middle of the season.
Who? Tell us who.
With connections to the club?
Are they firming things up or no?
Go ahead, Weeby.
Nice.
Go ahead and drop the Tom bomb.
I love that,
Tom
Weeby.
Bogert reporting that there's a lot of teams, perhaps even LAFC and MLS, that are interested in Robert Firmino, but that St. Louis have a route to it.
Robert Firmino?
Yeah. What did I say?
Roberto Firmino.
What did I say?
Bobby.
Robert? Yeah, I don't know. Dave, what do you think?
You're a true
Firmino?
lad. Just you're one from the cop. You've never walked alone.
Exactly. And I don't pay attention to European soccer anymore, so I'll just raise my hand on that one. What do you think, Dave? Good move?
Do I think Roberto Firmino would be a decent addition to St. Louis City SC? I mean, it covers Nicholas Joaquini's minutes, so you kind of get into a weird spot. How do you play all of them at the same time? Yeah, I think Firmino would be a good signing. And the truth is, he's what he has done best as being a facilitator and finisher in a high pressing system. So yes, I do think Firmino, a Brazilian national team player and a Premier League player and one of the best center forwards over the last 5 years or 10 years in the world, would be a decent addition to St. Louis City SC.
Mm-hmm.
The connection is Lutz Pfannenstiel was with Hoffenheim when they brought Firmino there. Now, there are other connections around MLS with this particular player. I think Ernst Tanner he was at Hoffenheim as well when Firmino was brought there.
This does not sound
Ayer,
like a Philly Union signing.
No, it does not. Ian Ayer was at Liverpool when Firmino went from Hoffenheim.
Would love it for Nashville. He feels like he does feel like could be a Gary Smith striker.
Does he? Because he's only like 5'10", 5'11". He's not a big target,
but he fights.
man.
But he fights.
He does fight. But with a player like this profile, like they tend to end up in LA or Miami, don't they?
What do you think, Kaylin?
Not if Messi's going to Miami. I mean, I would love to see him in St. Louis just because I would love to see him and Klaus play together, because everyone's like, oh, well, then who would start? Play them both together. Imagine those two. They're two completely different players. Klaus is that big, probably, I would say, one of the most, what's the word?
One of the most physical strikers in the league, right, Dave?
He's the most physical, so
he's 100% the most physical striker in the league. And then you have Roberto Firmino just doing what he does best, playing in and around him, getting behind the back line. So Doyle, you had mentioned, can they continue to score goals at this high rate? They could if they have Firmino coming into this side. I think it'd be a fantastic signing. I'd love to see it.
I would love to see it as well. Let's manifest it. Let's make it reality. Doyle, have you thought any more about the most physical strikers in Major League Soccer? This was an ongoing trope, Kaylin, if you were wondering why are they?
Yeah, I was wondering.
There was a claim made by Dave and then refuted perhaps by Doyle. And
I don't think it was refuted. I think Taquito was the one who was upset about it.
That's true.
Wait, who?
General So.
Yeah, General So, sorry.
Guys, I mean, just say, is Kai Kamara still in Major League Soccer?
Well, he wasn't.
I'm not
out
sure.
for
Not
next
next
game,
week.
so no.
Not next week. He's not.
He's going to have played 60 minutes in the first 5 games of the season. Who else is on that list?
Kai is the one who pops to mind first.
I feel like he's like just a disturber, though. He's not like the most like a big physical target number 9. Like, you know what I mean?
He's also 140 years old. No offense, Kai's still playing well, but like we have to adjust our thinking sometimes.
Yeah, I disagree with that, Kalen. Like he is just like aerially dominant in the box. He's able to carve out room against almost any center back. He's shown the ability to do that. His hold up play is still elite. Kai is the model for that. As far
you're
as
taking him over Klaus right now at the moment.
In terms of physicality, yeah. In terms of who's a better soccer player right now,
no, just Klaus. Physicality.
Yeah, I think Kai is still the standard, but I just wasn't ready for it when David made that assertion last week because I have not thought about it in those terms exactly. But those two guys probably. Oh, Christian Benteke. Yeah,
Benteke would be my choice there.
Yeah, he's so tough to knock off the ball. He's another guy who, like, if you think about it, it's all pitch control, right? Like it's all like, okay, who owns this part of the pitch? Like Christian Benteke at the highest levels of the game has always been really, really good at that. What he hasn't always been as good at is turning that directly into goals, which is something that we saw this weekend.
I've been scrolling
very
back
much like Christian Benteke. You were prepared to put that one in the corner a week and a half later after it was made. So you guys have that.
Oh, poor Christian. I was scrolling back. There's too many random CCL texts in our conversation here for me to see the full list that I put out there. So we will move on to Portland real quick. Evander. We've kind of been like, ooh, I don't know, Doyle. Like, are we still in the I don't know phase? Where are we at with Evander?
I mean, I'm giving him a mulligan this week. He came in after 10 minutes because Christian Paredes got hurt. He came out at around the 70th minute, very clearly on a minutes restriction. He had picked up what I heard was a hamstring knock during the week. Portland did a good job of keeping that one under wraps. He wasn't particularly effective. To me, it looks like there's a lot of overlap in terms of skill set with Eric Williamson. Like both guys are looking more like they're 8s than they are number 10s at this point, right? Like, and you see it. Kalen, you see it in Evander's chance creation numbers. He's created one chance in 240 minutes. Like you want him to be the type of number 10 that they've had in the past with Sebastian Blanco, who was still on the team, I should say, and Diego Valeri, guys who could just pick locks and have that sixth sense for where everybody is. And if he has that, he has not shown it yet.
I think anything that I've watched of him, he has all the tools to be successful in Major League Soccer. Literally everything: the physicality, the speed, the pace, the ability to dribble at a high pace, the vision, the passing range. So I don't want to put it on him because I want to say he's a young player, but he's not that young. He's 24, right? I know I said that last week. He's a younger player. I think it is going to take him time to transition. But when I look at Portland, I just feel like you nailed it for me. Like when Diego Valeri was there, and I'm not just saying this because obviously he works with us now, but legend. They don't really have a clear vision. Like when Diego Valeri was playing in Portland, they had a vision. You kind of knew how they played. Now it's, I don't know, knock it long, try to play through, try to win those second battles. I don't know. I just feel like maybe in Portland, I feel like they need to get their vision down and the players in and around Evander down and make him that focal point of the team, because I don't think that they've done that. But when you're spending that much money on a player, they have to be the focal point on your team.
My frustration for this team is what you said about Eric Williamson, which is in a salary cap league, you can't afford to spend a ton of money in a spot where you have a guy. And it feels like Eric Williamson can do literally in this game, in the minutes that Evander was not on the field, it felt like there was the same player on the field in what Eric Williamson was doing. It's the same issue with Charlotte, where it's like you have Swiderski. So that's the frustration, is like, why didn't you bring someone in who maybe enhances it now? I do think it can work. They need center forward. They need someone at the center forward position to play comfortably and score goals. Maybe Frank Boley's that guy. I do still think this can work, though. And I think it could be fun to watch if it's two guys sort of swapping in and out of positions and moving around a ton and taking up different spaces. And Evander said he played as an 8 in Denmark, not because that is where he wants to play, but that's where they asked him to, and he did it well. So he has that familiarity, but it just feels like you could have brought in a high-level center forward and had Eric Williamson play behind them.
St. Louis got their flowers. Cincinnati probably sitting around here in 40 minutes in saying, where's ours, Dave? 1-0
I
win
agree. We should have
against the
started with
Sounders. Some interesting refereeing moments in this one. I'll direct you to instant replay. We won't devote airtime to those unless for whatever reason you feel passionate about them. A little bit of it was a little choppy, but two quality teams. What'd you take away from Cincinnati's win?
So I think you go from the start to dominate possession, which is not really how they comfortably play, and look great at home, but not create the chances. And then you get the goal in a pressing moment, and then you're able to continue to be dangerous over the course of the game. But for this team, their Achilles heel last year was hanging on to leads and being able to play a full 90 minutes at a high level and not open up the door by trying to push for the next chance. And we saw them drop a ton of points from winning positions last year, and they got better, of course, the playoff game to be able to win late on. This felt like a really big moment against a good opponent coming in undefeated, and you're able to get ahead. Lucho Acosta, I thought, looked really good in this game, riding tackles, being physical, being someone you could play through in tough moments. Brenner's a guy that there was unsure. How's he going to come back? Didn't get to Nottingham Forest, wasn't here in preseason, down in Brazil. What's his mentality? How connected is he? He gets a goal. He had a couple really good looks as well. Brandon Vasquez looked fairly comfortable, again, being that guy who can be a finisher, but is also happy to be a facilitator for Brenner and Lucho as well. Brandon Vasquez hit like a 60-yard pass on a dime at one point to Lucho Acosta, which was obscene. There was a lot to like in this game, and you don't have Santi Arias. You get the red card against you. You're still able to cover and get out there with a victory. So this was all of the good parts of Cincinnati rolled into one, but done in a high-stakes moment where they've built the game up, saying Seattle's a big team. We want to show that we can win at this level and contend. And to me, it was they are now one of two or three Supporters Shield favorites.
I completely agree with that point. I think this game proved if they can continue with the consistency of the defensive side of this, because I think that's the thing with Cincinnati that was taking their team from good to great. Now, I'm not saying, MLS Cup champs after this win against Seattle, but the defensive mentality of this team for me, especially in this game, shifted so much of the fact that, we're okay with winning 3-2, 4-3, just getting goals in that quick counterattacking football. But for me, the defensive side actually started with the front three, where I never really saw that with Cincinnati. They were connected to the team a little bit more, which ultimately I think allowed them to have a little bit more freedom in that attacking not freedom, that's the wrong word, because they've always played very free in that attacking third. But I just felt as a team unit from front to back, from the goalkeeper to the front three, they just looked like they were all on the same page, which is exciting, but also scary for anyone else that's going up to play against Cincinnati if they can continue how they played this game in Seattle. And like you said, even with the red card, it didn't seem like it shook them. Yes, it was in the 83rd minute, so it's not a lot of time that you have to kill off, but still enough for Seattle. Seattle only needs a minute, 2 minutes to put the ball into the back of the net, and they just dealt with the continued flow and the attacking ability of Seattle from balls in wide areas, and I love to see it.
Got a little bit of a tornado siren going here, Doyle. You want to put a bow on this one, maybe from the Sounders' perspective?
It was a really high-level early season game. I don't think there's any reason for Seattle to worry. I thought they dropped Rusnak and João Paulo a little bit lower to try to contain Lucho, and that kind of let Abina Nwodo, who I thought was like the best player in the league this weekend, that let him and Junior Moreno run up onto the Sounders during any build-out opportunity. And so they ended up putting that Seattle midfield in hell for like the full 90 minutes. I trust that Seattle will end up figuring stuff like that out during the run of play most times, because they are such a good team. And just overall, this game made me feel good about picking Cincy to win the East and Seattle to win the West. These are two really, really good teams, two of the three best teams in the league right now.
You should. And I would add, you start to look at the tops of the conferences, and it's a lot of teams that are going to play in CCL, and Cincinnati's not one of them. Show Mosquero's looked really good. I assume they'll find a way to extend that deal. Now you've got a little depth at a position of weakness. In the past, they're bringing Kubo off the bench to help close games. Essentially, they've gotten 4 points in the last two games without Santi Arias, which I wasn't sure they'd be able to do. because they struggled at times with Powell or Gaddis along the right wing back spot last year.
Well, they're not
So
crossing as much, David. Like last year, they were much more cross heavy. They were crossing almost 20 times a game last year. They're down about 60%. They're down to like 13, 14 times a game. And that's part of that is like they're pressing more. They're just getting up on teams and forcing them to turn the ball over. Like literally that's how they generated the goal.
And the goal came, it was the third straight turnover in a span of 4 minutes. It was Steph Fry passing into pressure. It was Ymar and it was Nuhu. And it was just like relentless from Cincinnati. And as you said, that creates their chances.
So we're high on Cincinnati. They are who we thought they were. Charlotte FC, not who I thought they were. I went on a little bit of a Christian Latanzio limb and picked them 5th in the East this year. They have lost 3 times. They host Atlanta United in the early game on Saturday. They lose 3-0. Yeah, I don't know. We'll save the Charlotte stuff for the back end of this. Let's start with the positive. Let's go positive.
Weeby, U.S. Soccer just dropped their investigation, so we're all reading.
Yes,
we're all reading what we're listening to right now.
I saw it as well. I saw it
you
as
see
well.
all of our eyes? We're like,
right when I started reading it myself, that's when the tornado siren outside my house went off. So it felt very fitting in a lot of ways. Take cover.
I thought the tornado thing was a metaphor. In New Jersey. That's a real thing.
I don't know. I've just moved here, so it could be anything. That could be a really bad thing for me right now. I don't know what that is.
Okay, I always hear that siren, and I just tell myself there's a zoo close by and there's an animal that escaped, because that's a siren you hear in Canada when that happens. So I hope it's not a tornado.
What a strange-
Is that a thing that's ever happened?
Normal zoo escape siren?
Oh, hey, don't worry
If
about
like an
that.
animal gets out, they like, well, in Saskatchewan,
How
anyways,
often
that's
do
what
animals
sirens
get out?
Oh my gosh.
Is this like
Well,
a
like-
daily thing?
No, it's Saskatchewan, so it's like a bear or a deer. Like it's not like lions.
Wait a minute,
That's a big difference.
No, there's
That's a big
between
difference. A bear or a
and
deer?
a deer.
Anyways, moving on.
Okay,
Like-
so on my, look, in Kansas, usually Mondays at noon, there's a tornado siren. Here, I don't know. I'm still figuring all this out. Anyway, our 2222 player of the weekend is Caleb Wiley. The 18-year-old has his breakout game, 2 goals and an assist on all 3 goals. Of course, Atlanta scored. Derek Etienne is out right now, so he's playing left wing. Probably projects down the line as a left back, but he joined elite company, getting 2 goals at this age. Alphonso Davies, I think, did it 3 times. That's pretty elite. Bobby Convey is in that group. Diego Fagundes is in that group. What did you see from Caleb Wiley, Doyle?
Attacking space. This great performance from him was him completely understanding his role. And we said it for years with that attack. They need runners. They have a bunch of guys who are really, really good on the ball and want ball to feet. What they need to balance that are guys who want to run into space. And that's exactly how this played out with Caleb Wiley. Atlanta overloaded that right side with Luis Araujo and Thiago Almada kind of shaded over there. And even Miguel Berry was kind of shaded to the right side. That pulled Charlotte to that side, and that gave Caleb Wiley plenty of space. And the kid, he clearly reads it really well. He's very confident when he gets into the final third, especially when you consider that he's played most of his minutes as a wingback or even as a fullback. Looked like a winger in this one. It was just a really smart performance. And that is the type of player he's going to be, right? He's not a build around this guy type of attacker. It's more like if he ends up as an attacker, it's almost like Diego Rossi was for that great LAFC team, where he wasn't creating the plays. He was making the hard runs in behind and either hitting pullbacks across the face or, getting onto that exact same pass like we saw in this one. And it's just I always want to see the U.S. produce more left backs. So I hope over time he does end up drifting deeper. But there is a really compelling argument to keep this kid in that 3 line in Atlanta's 4-2-3-1, because he knows how to let the other players make him better. And that is in and of itself a real big skill.
Well, just going off your point there, I think you touched on Alphonso Davies was the first guy to do it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew.
Well, he's the one who's done it the most and at the youngest age.
He's one of if not one of the best left backs in the world, but he can also play up top. And I think if you can be a Swiss Army knife, if this young kid, 18-year-old, is looking at anything, he's looking at Alphonso Davies to be he can play anywhere down the left-hand side of the pitch, whether it's for national team, country, and club. and he's one of the best at doing it. What I do like when he is with Atlanta, he's 18 years old and he is playing free. He's like an unscared 18-year-old. So I love to see this. I hope he continues on this pathway, because you just hate to see when you are such a young player, you get those 2 goals and then there's a little bit of maybe pressure added on you. So I'm hoping people in and around Atlanta United are almost not babying him, but just continue to be like, do what you need to do, make mistakes, take people on. Because I think that's what made Alphonsi's good to great, is not being afraid to take 3-4 players on, not being afraid to take that final shot when you do have World Cup winners in your team. So I think it's like the best case scenario, and the U.S. would be lucky to have him.
So you have Caleb Wiley this weekend. Jalen Neal makes his first start with the Galaxy on the 2222 side. 19 years old, plays well, shutout in Kansas City. Owen Wolf, 18, we talked about it, gets his first goal, but has looked very good. Noah Buck and others. It was a banner weekend. Miguel Perez for St. Louis. It's a banner weekend for young players. I think, Atlanta looked fine in this game. We have some questions about their style of play, but I think we'll save those maybe for midweek here. Yakumakis, I think he'll help the attack, obviously, when he gets in as well. And we'll save the Atlanta stuff. Let's just focus on Charlotte a little bit. 3 losses, 1 goal scored through 3 matches. 2 of those are home losses. A lot of positive buzz. I was among those creating that buzz. And Doyle, I'm just a little bit confused. Like, I don't know why things had to be switched up so much. It seems like from the end of last year, when it was so encouraging and Swiderski underneath a forward was so effective. I understand the instinct to play Brant Bronico at left back with the way that they want to play, but you saw in this game, he just doesn't have the instincts for the position yet. On the first goal, it's a bad giveaway in a position where you can't play that pass. And then on the third goal, he just gets absolutely cooked on a bad decision to step in the open field on Thiago Almada. Now, that doesn't take into consideration the structural issues there when you have a flat midfield and you're pressuring Miles Robinson into space to literally break your team with one easy pass. And again, Swiderski, he's not getting the ball enough. He's not getting the ball in positions to be effective. Everybody knows he's going to cut back onto his left foot. It feels very, very stale. It feels unbalanced, and it feels like the best pieces they have aren't being put in positions to be at their best. I don't know why you would choose to prioritize, and I love him, Andre Shinashiki over Swiderski, for instance.
Yeah, I don't understand any of it. And I thought it's really disappointing, because I think we were all pretty impressed with how Christian Lattanzio turned that team around when he took over, a third of the way through the season. They went 10-11-2 last year, which is really under him, which is really good for an expansion team. And they were playing really good ball down the stretch. Remember, they pounded Philadelphia. They had a couple wins over other playoff teams as well. And they were doing it by playing, pretty expansive, pretty attractive city football group inflected soccer. They were using the ball, and I thought that they would just sort of build onto that. Capetti in as a replacement for Daniel Rios, Swiderski more comfortable in that shadow striker role. But you're right, maybe he's changed everything, and it's really, really, really not working. It's all like the build out is stilted and just so slow and predictable. Guys are uncomfortable in their positions. Swiderski being the obvious one, putting him on the right wing where he does not have the speed or the 1v1 ability to get to the end line and hit pullbacks. And he's very left-footed anyway, so he can't hit pullbacks with his right foot. So you have him sort of inverted, except wide, where all he can do is just kind of try to cut a guy and bend in a cross. That's your best player.
And in the build-outs with him down the right side, again, you talk about he's not an explosive guy. He needs pieces around him to connect with to be good.
And
no
that's
one's
what
close enough to him.
That's what Lattanzio did so well last year in putting he was in kind of like the Driussi role, where he's like, you're a midfielder sometimes, but mostly you're a forward, get in the box, combine a little bit. And he was good. He's not Driussi, but he was good. And then the balance in midfield with Derek Jones just sitting and protecting last year, which let Bronico rove and kind of destroy, that's gone. It's now supposed to be kind of a pulley system, I think, with Ashley Westwood, who's making really dangerous runs into the box, but he's not adding anything defensively, and that leads to the types of goals that Weeby rightly pointed out on his Twitter feed. I think this is all salvageable. I don't think this is as bad looking as it was in April of last year. And Lattanzio was able to figure out Miguel Angel Ramirez's mess, and now he just has to figure out his own. Like, put Swiderski back, underneath the striker. Get Kamil Józwiak, who's got 1 goal in his last 92 games and is somehow a DP. Like, either get him out of the lineup or put him on the right wing and say, like, all you're doing is getting to the end line for pullbacks. That's all you have to do in this position. And then, like, give Nuno Santos or Kerwin Vargas a shot at left wing to see if they have some juice, because they're not getting anything out of Józwiak.
Or Andre Shinyashiki, who has scored a ton of goals off the wing, including last year when he got to Charlotte.
Right.
That's what I don't
It's
get.
not like Andre Shinyashiki is the world's best 10 and can only play there. That's the weirdest part about this whole thing.
I think you're right. And then the other thing is, like, Mora has been a serviceable MLS left back. He's not going to make best 11, but that's fine. You'd need your left back to just be a guy on this team. Like, the idea of having an inverting left back to get into that 3-2-2-3, it's like that works very rarely outside of the absolute top clubs in the world, and it's not going to work with this group of players, man. It's just not.
Speaking of a club that could be one of the top clubs in the world, or just have the world's top player, or the Inter Miami and Messi going to New York City. I don't know. That was a train wreck.
It was a train.
Inter Miami and Messi. So Inter Miami undefeated coming into this game. They lose.
I thought you were talking about Bryce Duke there for a second.
I should be.
World's top player. Come on, man.
What do we think of this loss in New York City, Kaylin?
I knew you were coming to me for this. You know what? I'm gonna get heat on this. I know we're all gonna disagree with me. I still think Inter Miami are the real deal. Reasons why. You look at Joseph Martinez. He looked like a different man. I think he had two goals pulled back from offsides positions, which is fine. But the look in his eyes, the hungry look where that petrifies teams, I feel like he's kind of starting to find, okay, this works for me. You're without Capana up top yet. So once he is back fully healthy and fully fit, that is going to be a very scary dynamic. Now, my huge concern, obviously the own goal, terrible. Obviously, you never want to score an own goal, but if they could have gone there and got the result at 0-0, would have been fantastic. The big thing is Gregore in the middle of the park for me. Hopefully I don't know if have you guys seen anything, if it's what it is, but it looks
they say it's a
really bad.
Lisfranc injury, which is in your foot. And from Anders fantasy football manager experience and some quick Googling, it is like you're not on your feet for 8 to 10 weeks minimum.
Which, okay, so that's going to be a huge loss. What I will say is they do have Bryce Duke to come in, and maybe they just go with one defensive midfield. But Gregore, for me, since it's coming to Inter Miami, he's kind of been that guy that obviously he took over the captaincy when he first came in midway through season. That's a huge loss for Inter Miami. Obviously, the one blessing is they do have Phil Neville that will put that confidence in someone else on the pitch. But they need to get Capana back healthy, and they need him to stay healthy for a long period of time, because since coming over to America, he's not been healthy for a long stretch of games. It always seems to be nothing major, like an ACL or MCL, but it's always like a knock, like a hamstring, a muscle injury. He's got to get that figured out. So hopefully he can do that. But I think obviously it was I'm going to say it, and I don't even want to say it, an unlucky, it was bad body positioning for the own goal, but I'm not nervous about Inter Miami.
Did
the Gregore injury. The Gregore injury, that's as big a one as you can have probably for them. And it takes probably their big strength, right? Because you talked about it last week of like him and Mota, their familiarity, the way they give and take, Pizarro sort of buzzing around them. That to me was what kept them in that conversation of being elite. The back line looks good, but it feels like if you leave a DP spot open and you lose a DP, now we start to get into like the KC space last year where you only have so much talent on your roster in a salary cap league.
But if you look at any of the games from last season, this is why it's a huge blow, 100%. I'm not taking that away. I'm just trying to find the positive in this. You do have someone of a Bryce Duke. And I think he gets very overlooked because of his age. And he's always been that player that comes off the bench and just kind of fills a role. But last year when he was starting with Inter Miami, for me, he was one of the most dangerous players in Inter Miami. Especially with the ball at his feet. He's so good in tight spaces. And I think that's what maybe Pizarro hasn't always been consistently good at. I mean, the last game you kind of saw that, trying to take too many extra touches and getting stripped. which he's got to figure that out. That's the one biggest downfall of Pizarro, is knowing when to get it and when to give it, making quicker decisions in that playmaking role. Where I think Bryce Duke, for me, it could be maybe that difference maker of defense to attack and being more consistent and being more dangerous. So I'm excited for this, devastated about Gregore, but Mata is a very similar-ish player. They're like the duo brothers in that middle of the pitch, those Brazilians that just understand each other. So Mata's going to have to pick it up a bit, but I wouldn't be shocked if maybe they went with one screen instead of two defensive midfielder screens, and then allowed Bryce Duke and maybe Pizarro a little bit of a system change to go in that 8 and 10. But yeah, it is a huge blow, but I love Bryce Duke, and come on, Bryce Duke, please don't let me down this season.
Give us a nugget on New York City, Doyle, and then we'll put it into overdrive because we got to get to CCL.
We're not going to do a 3-hour show, maybe.
It's not up to me. If it was,
yeah, I'm on the record a million times that I don't like Talles Magno false 9. I don't like that experiment. I don't think it's going to work out long term, but I think we saw in chunks in this game the idea behind it. And there's one particular sequence of play around the 58th, 59th minute where it's like 4 straight NYCFC attacks. The first one, he's pulling out to the left flank and he's breaking the offside trap and he's getting in on goal and having a good shot that Drake Callender saves. And Drake Callender was amazing in this game. The second attack, and then NYCFC press and immediately win the ball back. Second attack, Talles Magno drops deep into a playmaker's role and lets Gabby Pereira make a darting run into the center channel. Now, it doesn't come off because Talles Magno takes a sloppy touch, but that's the idea of the false 9. Miami win the ball, NYCFC immediately win it back, and this time it's Talles Magno making a run straight up the gut, bringing, I think it was McVeigh with him on his back shoulder and trying to get onto a clip ball, trying to control it with his chest. Doesn't quite have the touch to control it, but okay, now he's making hard runs right up the gut, and then NYCFC press, win the ball back immediately again, and this time Talles Magno drops deep a little bit, then makes a curling run to the back post as Keaton Parks is dribbling upfield. That freezes Kristoff and allows Santi Rodriguez to make a run in the left channel, get on the end of a slip pass from Keaton Parks, 1v1 with the keeper. Of course, Drake Callender makes a save, but that little sequence, it took a minute and a half tops. That little sequence right there shows the idea of how a false 9 is supposed to play and how it can work with Talles Magno. Again, I would prefer just a regular number 9 if I was an NYCFC fan, but I have to interrogate my own biases and my own preferences here and say okay, we saw a little something in this game from NYCFC that makes you think maybe this could end up improving over the course of the season. Maybe this could end up looking like the right choice.
I feel like every time you talk about attacking, your cat comes into picture. I feel like your cat wants to get drafted by someone.
Taquito was when he gets excited about tactics, I get a good pet. So I'm going to roll through here.
You're like catnip when you're talking about tactics.
They do like it when I get animated. I will say that. Absolutely.
So the one thing I'd add to all of that is I thought Ilinic was really good in this game. Kufre's been really good. Gabi Pereira making those runs off the wing and being a finisher is necessary if Magno's going to play that role. And if Ilinic is giving them that width, it unlocks him to do that. And so I think that's been a pretty big factor over the last 2 games as well. And then Santi Rodriguez just gives you a higher level centrally, which makes everyone, I think, more comfortable. So this was definitely the best performance we've seen so far.
And then the thing that sort of ties it together, James Sands is just sitting as the 6 now. So now Keaton Parks can go forward as well. He's no longer a defensive midfield. And we saw the most dangerous stuff that NYCFC did was win the turnover, get the ball on Keaton Parks' foot, have him pick the pass. And that turned Drake Callender into the best goalkeeper of the week.
All right, 1 touch passes here. San Jose Earthquakes 1, Colorado Rapids 0. Dave, San Jose are a couple Thiago Almada bombs away from having 3 wins in 3 games with Lucci. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been awesome. I think it's what they needed, which was the psychological boost of having a game model, having a game plan, showing some balance on the field, and being able to get results out of it. They have not been against the highest level of quality at home, so there's still another step for them to take, and I think they're capable of it. But he's put Christian Espinoza in dangerous situations on the edge of the box over and over again. And this is the player who we've seen the data show who he is, but the team around him wasn't ready maybe to be able to give him the counting stats. Now he's getting those opportunities. They've rotated a couple other pieces and shown well. Mensah, I think, has looked comfortable helping them play out of the back. And, Croatia does what he has done best in this league, which is something that just didn't exist on this roster over the last 2 years. So it's been a really good start. Under Lucci, it's been fun. I think we had an email from San Jose fans saying, like, we're going to the stadium. It's good. It's fun. Like, winning 2 games at home, one in dramatic fashion, that's what's going to get fans coming back.
Nashville with a home win as well, 2-0 against Montreal. Montreal. Hani Mukhtar's first start of the season. He assisted on the first goal. That's what he does. Jacob Schaffelberg, I don't know, ought to give Hani like one of those, a haircut maybe. I don't know what Jacob Schaffelberg has that Hani wants, but he's getting fed by the big man right now. Montreal, no goals, no points. Joshua Bracehead hit us up, and he had a screed. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you all hate Nashville?
I love Nashville.
I can't put a number on that. Says, while I don't expect LA team's level of coverage, good trope there, it would be nice to hear non-disparaging coverage and breakdowns of Nashville SC without the whole discussion being centered around the other team we played. Over the last 2 seasons, Nashville are 6th highest in goals for, tied for 2nd in fewest goals allowed, 2nd best goal differential behind the Union. He went on to give a lot of other stats that proved how good Nashville have been, which I don't necessarily think we've argued. We've just said there's another level that they can't reach. He is, however, taking notes. He said we had multiple segments recently that Nashville would fit perfectly in, but you refused to bring them up. Here are those segments. The club assignment for a new fan. This guy wanted a road trip destination, Nashville. This guy hated possession-based soccer, Nashville. This guy likes mustaches, Joe Willis. This guy has tattoos, Randall Leal. This guy likes a crazy style of play. We play defend and kickball. Hani gets it with enough space to create something, and then it's a crazy style in professional soccer. He also says, Dave, that you should have listed them as a team with a solid core to build around. They said Milkman and Schaffelberg are both 23. Leal, Shaq Moore, Sean Davis, Zimmerman. Mukhtar's probably not going anywhere. So Joshua,
I like a lot of that. I'm sorry. It's been a great start to the season. I am not putting Schaffelberg yet in the building block of a franchise conversation. I think that's a little aggressive.
That's anti-Canadian bias.
Yeah, well, it's just
is.
Nova Scotia. I respect the rest.
Wow.
Come on, if you're going to be out that far, no one even knows you exist.
Don't disrespect Canada, you.
That's a beautiful
you're not
prop.
wrong.
Just the Maritimes. Just the Maritimes.
Yeah,
See,
exactly.
you know your geography. You know your geography
A little
up
bit.
up in Canada.
Gooner Gabe says, who wins a game first? And we'll get you more Nashville talk midweek. That's where we have a little more time to breathe. Who wins a game first, Montreal or Charlotte? So Montreal, Philly at home, at Vancouver, at New England, DC, Red Bulls at home, Charlotte at Orlando, Red Bulls at home, at Toronto, at RSL, home against Colorado.
Charlotte's going to win first. Charlotte has better players. Yeah. Montreal, they sold so much this offseason. Kai leaving was big as well. And just the switch from Nancy's approach to Hernan Losada's, it's been jarring. And they don't have answers.
The way Hernan Losada wears the full body jacket open, he looks like a wrestler making his entrance. Like it was on the sideline, it was a class look. Yeah, because it goes like, it's whatever, the full body parka, but then he wears it open. I don't know.
Tough for him. 5 road games in the first 6 to start. And you mentioned it, Doyle. They sold everybody basically. But it's just Kyoto and Wanyama trying to keep him afloat right now. It's not happening for Montreal. Dave, I believe somebody on this show had insisted that Montreal had the talent to be mid-table.
Yeah, I'm not. So the Kone one is the one that hurts because you have development where you have Herrera to replace Johnston, George Campbell. I think
what about
other
Georgie?
pieces.
Who replaces Georgie?
Well, Kone should have replaced Georgie. You kind of accelerated that because he was so good and you got the money. And so now they're in a situation where they don't have a creative player, and they've relied on all young guys to assume one of them will step in. And I don't even think that's fair. Clearly, it's not successful as well. But when you talk about St. Louis and beating yourself, like this is a Montreal team that doesn't do that much still. They haven't had Joel Waterman. They went and lost 1-0 at Austin on a breakaway. Like I still think this is a Montreal team that over the course of the season will even out.
Okay, let's talk.
It's only the
Vancouver,
most
Dallas.
home-heavy league in the world, and they're going to play 5 of 6 on the road, and you're going to try and dunk on them. I can't. Let me set my watch for when Weeby goes. Did we all give up on Montreal too soon?
Can we also add Mason Toy needs to start, and they need to switch into a 4-3-3? There we go. Andrew, you can move on now.
All right, Vancouver Whitecaps, FC Dallas. Doyle, you have obviously a very engaging point to make, given Taquito is back for more attention.
Is there an engaging point to be made about this team?
I didn't think so.
About this game?
I didn't think so personally, but in the pre-show meeting, you implied that you did have that.
No, I'm not sure I do. Vancouver, they had 2 games this week. They won the big one 5-0. Good on them. They need to figure out how to bring that for 90 minutes to MLS play, because they've had good 30-minute segments in each of their games, but they have not been able to adjust anything in the second half at any point. As for Dallas, they have changed a little bit in terms of how they play. I think they're running into the depth a little bit more. They're a little bit less structured than they were last year. And Kosei Tafare, like his passing in this game, forget about the assist, but just his ability to break lines and build up, that has allowed that midfield to be a little bit more aggressive in pushing forward off the ball. Hasn't led to goals yet, but you can see the seeds of something a little bit more free-flowing germinating with this Dallas team, so I guess I did have something to say. Good job, Taquito. You got it out of me.
Anders, do you have a buzzer at the ready? Can you let me know if you do, because to get to CCL, we're going to have to hit some buzzers here. Toronto won, Columbus won. Toronto have had a lead in all 3 games. Kaylin, they have not. I don't believe they've won any of those games.
Toronto. They're disappointing me. I'm not going to lie. Other than Bernadeschi and his off interviews away from the pitch, those have been the only bright spots for me. And I know I'm being very harsh. It's because I love Toronto. I genuinely love Toronto. I love the ownership group there. I love what they're trying to build, but it just hasn't been working. You cannot sign the type of players that they've signed. Obviously, yes, without Insigne due to injury, but you still have a international midfield. You still have you brought in MLS experience in your center back role. You brought Richie Larea back from England. You have that partnership of Bernadeschi, Richie Larea down the right-hand side, which is probably one of the most dynamic, I would say, partnerships in a fullback and a winger in Major League Soccer. And they just don't look dangerous. And I don't know if that comes down to management. I don't know if that comes down to personnel on the pitch. I genuinely don't know. But I'm saying to Bob Bradley, he's got to get it together for this side, or else pressure is going to be on, because Toronto isn't going to have mediocre results. They can't just win games. They need to win, and they need to win pretty with the type of players that they do have. I mean, you have Marc-Anthony Kaye in the midfield. I mean, you have Osorio in the midfield, Michael Bradley. So there's just no excuse for me with this Toronto side. I just have not been impressed yet.
Start with wins, probably. That would be a good starting point. Yeah. Doyle, start with goals for Duncan McGuire, the first 2023 MLS Super Draft pick to get a goal. He's fueling your Golden Boot team one bundle in at a time.
Yeah, and that's like looking at his tape from college. That is a Duncan McGuire goal. Just really good box movement, finding a way to control that space and get in front of his defender, and one-touch finish. There's a reason that Bradley Wright Phillips is really, really high on this guy, and it's because of that type of movement, those types of instincts in the box. I will point out that Duncan McGuire got his first start and first goal after 4 games under Oscar Pareja. The previous center forward drafted by Oscar Pareja in Orlando, a guy by the name of Daryl Dike, took him 10 games to get into the starting lineup. So it gives you an idea of what I think Oscar Pareja sees in this kid. Go ahead, Weeby.
It was in a pandemic.
Okay.
Like, Imos's back was like it was a bizarro time.
Okay. But the point is, he didn't get on the field for a start until 10 games into his career. And I'm not saying that
balancing Champions League at that time.
Okay. He was also 3 years younger, 19 versus 22, but not relevant.
Okay.
Either.
Okay.
I love
We can't let you just coast by on the cloud of Duncan
This is
McGuire.
a Ben Mines goal. where you're playing CCL and you get a game in the middle.
No,
Wow.
they traded up to get him in this super draft for a reason, man. And he was starting games for them in preseason. It makes total sense that he didn't come out of the gate starting. If you look at this game, his hold-up play was so much better than what we've seen from Erkan Kara. I'm not sure that Maguire's going to start midweek against Tigres, but he's going to be inserted into the starting lineup it's going to happen really quick, just as it did for Daryl Dike, because he's a better player than the other guys in the mix.
We had to rain on
I think he's more effective as well. Oh.
Yep, we had to rain on your parade. We got to keep it going. I'm sorry, but it was cool to see him do a backflip. Did not know he had that in the locker. Dave, Union Fire, just to keep it moving here. Kaylin, I know you want to talk about the Fire, but we got to get to CCL, but I do want to talk about this Andre Blake injury, Dave.
Yeah.
Big issue. It's the groin.
Year to year, they've been the best team in Major League Soccer over the last 4 years. He's their best player. So if that's a serious injury, it's goalkeeper. You can probably cover it in different ways. You know, they have an elite center back pairing. They've got Jose Martinez. Like, they can cover for it in places, but their ceiling doesn't exist without Andre Blake.
Jose Martinez in prime Jose Martinez form in this game, just absolutely stirring it up. Jim Curtin on the injury for Andre Blake, quote, "We're hoping for the old 2 weeker. But we're preparing for 4 or 6 or 8. It sounds a little bit positive. He has strength in the groin." So that's good news for Andre Blake. Sporting Kansas City.
Keep us updated,
Galaxy.
Jim. Thank you.
Yeah, let us know.
The scouting report.
Yeah. Boy, Sporting Kansas City 0, LA Galaxy 0. Sporting have not scored. They do have a draw in Colorado this year. We had a bunch of Sporting Kansas City folks hitting us up on Twitter saying, will Sporting score a goal this season? It was many iterations of the same question. Adam and KC, before this game even happened, said, I'm curious about your thoughts on SKC's start to the season. Only 1 goal allowed in 2 games, but the defense has looked shaky with Pulskamp needed to make some big saves. On the other end, no goals. They seem to be getting the ball into attacking areas, but the finishing is not there. Should Kansas City fans be worried about the lack of final product when Russell, Pluto, and Keane make their returns? Will things start clicking on offense? I'm looking forward to heading out to CMP for the home opener against LA. Hopefully we can finally get that first goal, and hope was dashed for poor Adam in Kansas City, who did not see that but saw a ton of shots. There were some decent opportunities, but Willie Agata does not look like the same player. He had 1 or 2 in this game that you would like him to do better on. What do you think, Doyle? Is it going to be fixed when these guys come back, or?
I mean, it's what I was saying about Dennis Boanga 4 hours ago on the same show. When you have guys,
Jimmy Kimmel.
When you have guys who are getting into good spots and just aren't finding the final touch, but who are proven goal scorers, you trust those guys to eventually figure out how to put the ball in the back of the net. Obviously, they would be in better shape if they had any of their 3 DPs available, and we still don't know when that's going to happen. But based upon what we saw from Sporting in this game, based upon what we saw from them last week, the goals are going to come probably sooner than later.
He's also Adam in KC. Happy for the neighbors in St. Louis and for their success and contributions to soccer in the U.S., but he says it is crazy that they get the city moniker because Kansas City has city in their name and they actually own it. So I just wanted to give Adam his moment there. RSL lose at home to Austin. Owen Wolf scores. Andres Gomez, first start for RSL. Let's take this straight into CCL because that's really what matters on Tuesday for Austin. Down 3-0 on aggregate to Violette. 8 p.m. Eastern for this game. It seems like it will happen. Violette signing former U.S.-based pros to fill out their roster. Dave, what do you know about what's going on here? And we're all rooting for the underdog? Probably.
All I know is my guy Sachi Hot and FC Motown announcing that one of their players is going to head down to play for Violette. So I guess they're allowed to. I guess you're allowed to register players after the legs have started, which seems a little bit odd. But it's 3-0. Yeah. Austin are still in it. This is a team that scored a ton of goals. Did he win the Golden Boot last year? No, Hani won the Golden Boot. I can't remember. But they have Zardes, Druisi, Fagundes, John Gallagher's left foot, which is the second best foot on the team next to John Gallagher's right foot. So this is an explosive team. They're going to play at home. They're going to have their crowd. Clearly, Violette are in a tough spot. So they have every potential to come back and win this game. Didn't we see LAFC right before COVID? They were down 2-0 to Leon and came back and won it 3-2 at home. Yep. So we've seen stuff like this before. clearly Austin have not put themselves in the best situation to get there. And I am curious what the reaction will be if they go out in a bad way, just to a club that says they want to challenge for trophies. Like, this is your first opportunity, and this would be a pretty embarrassing way to go out.
Credit to them, though. Both times they've been punched in the mouth this year, obviously against St. Louis, and then in Champions League, they rebounded from both of those. So I think with Driussi, with some urgency forcefully injected into them by that loss in the Dominican Republic, I think there's a very good chance that they move on. Would you put a probability on that, Doyle? What's the probability Austin move on?
It feels a flip, but I don't think it would be like the greatest shock in the world if they were to overturn this, especially given Violette, like what Violette did down in the DR was really remarkable, and they deserve all the credit in the world, but they're up against it with the state of the roster and their inability to travel so many key pieces of that team. It's really tough.
I should just know that when I ask for it's 50-50. Everything's 50-50.
This is MLS, buddy. Come on.
Yeah. Philadelphia Union Alianza also on Tuesday. Kaylin, do the Union get through? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I said this, I think I said this last week when I was first on the show. I said Philly and LAFC are my top two teams. I think we're going to see an MLS team win this thing. So, yeah, they're through.
Philly are through. Real España will host the Vancouver Whitecaps on Wednesday. Please, Vancouver, just don't blow it. Just
this would be an all-timer.
Yeah,
this would be an all-timer.
Come on, just get through it. You're going to be all right. Orlando City, though, Dave, scoreless after leg one at El Volcan. Now you come back to Exploria on Wednesday night. Can they do it? Can Poppy get the boys over the hill against Tigres?
100%. They did everything they had to do.
Wait, 100% means? Do you mean you're guaranteeing a win? Saying 100% they're going to win? Is that what you just said?
No, there was no part of what I just said. But I appreciate you trying.
Weeby asked you. Are they going to get?
No,
he said are they going to get? Oh, okay. All
right. But they lost this weekend, and this is. I don't know. I think Orlando. We've seen them at their best at home in moments where they're able to win individual battles, and I do think they have the pieces
100%
in this team to win those big moments. I thought Pereira was incredible in the last game in that deeper position. Now you're going to have a little bit more of the ball because you're going to be at home. Janssen came off the bench on the weekend, got a few minutes in him, but able to stay healthy and keep himself good. Gallese made an incredible save this weekend. Once again, a match-winning play for them. So, yeah, it's in this Orlando team to get it done.
And by the way, Gignac can't travel. Well, can't travel. Sorry, I'm going to put that out there. He's not traveling to Orlando. So that's like the big piece to the puzzle for Tigres.
He can't travel.
What?
He cannot travel to the United States.
No, I know. But that's what I'm saying. That's a huge piece to Tigres. Like, without him, it's a completely different team. And we saw that obviously when the first initial red card, everyone was thinking, oh, thank God, but he can't travel anyway. So I definitely am in complete agreement with you. I think Orlando have all the pieces to get this job done.
Did Toronto beat Tigres in the opening round when they made their run to the final? Yeah.
Yes. They beat Tigres, then they beat Club America, then they lost to Chivas.
Yep.
And that Tigres game in Toronto was one of the best games I've ever seen. It was like high level, high speed. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go, Orlando. Get the job done. LAFC then is going to host Alajuelense on Wednesday night as well, and we will know who's on to the next round of CONCACAF Champions League. Thanks for sticking with us for an argument about whether Dave said can or would at the hour 25 minute mark.
I heard David Goss guarantee that Orlando City is going through against Tigres. And we all know that David Goss is the world's biggest Orlando City fan. That's what we learned.
As long as Diego Lainez is on the field, Orlando's good to go.
Oh, wow.
We shall see. We will be back midweek. I'll put out a tweet for all your thoughts, takes, and questions. In the meantime, enjoy CONCACAF Champions League. Enjoy your week. Adios, everybody.